Hey everyone, good to have you guys here. Happy Sunday to everyone else, and welcome to leg number 12 of 14. Well, this will be our first leg fully into China today. After this, we got two more legs left to go, which is very exciting for the journey here today. And we are here at Zhejiao Airport, located outside of the border city of Manzhouli. And it's great to have everyone here today. Um, it's good to have everyone here. Thanks, guys, so much for showing up. So today our flight plan is going to take us a bit more unique. So today's flight plan will take off from here from Zhejiao Airport, and we're going to fly 100 nautical miles, and we're going to actually make a quick landing over to Dongshan Airport, located in Huan which is one of the other Chinese cities in the northeast. Then we'll go through some of the hills and mountains here. We'll have to climb to 6,000 feet, at, at least safely around that area, just to avoid the mountains. We'll fly through right by one of the few Chinese cities, including uh, Qing, and then we fly through King, and then we'll finally make our way through into Harbin, one of the largest city in all of northeastern China. In fact, I may want to do a quick flyover of the city and then land at Zulu Hotel Alpha Alpha at Wang Kang Airfield. Probably land either at 2-1 right or 2-1 left because we'll have to take back out there again. So this flight plan is around 444 nautical miles. Again, a pretty long flight plan for today. So I think that should be pretty good here, guys. So let's get into the chat. Hello there to Nightzap. Yes, I'm very interested to see what Trent is in store for us. X BMF X Murphy, good to have you here. Martel172 is in the chat. Great to have you here, Martel. So we're gonna pick back the Yunkers. Now before we get to our journey, let me read the notes. Um, I had trouble did set up the weather. It's supposed to be really bad, so I'm having like I had trouble set up the weather here. I went with the dense clouds from Weather Preset Pro. I guess I could do this. Yeah, there you go. I think I probably set the weather. So let's go back to our journey, shall we? So the following day, we actually leave for Harbin. Now they are joined by a Chinese pilot in the D903, and he speaks fluent French. Since he was trained in France during World War I, and they call him a valuable help when landing at the Chinese airports. So that's where it is pre-flight. Let's get this junker started. Yeah, the clouds are really dense. I made them low-hanging clouds. Like the visibility was not good at all. Yeah, making like the visibility really bad. Let's go ahead and get all of this started. Let me go ahead and speed up the startup process. Um, yes. I'm cheating. I'm cheating with the weather. No worries. Some people. Just showing you how you could get this plane ready in less than 5 minutes. Okay. There you go. And that should be getting everything started. See, I'm just showing you that you don't need to take very long to get everything started. Like I said, you don't need much time to start this up. If you know what you're doing like me, I can get this started in less than 5 minutes. Who knows? We might be flying the neck of the woods again. I mean, who knows when I'll be flying the neck of the woods again? Exactly. So, guys, I think that's everything started. I'll wait for the rest of you to get started just in case. But yeah, I loaded with full fuel today. I wanted to have enough fuel just in case for today. But actually, we're not going to load fuel. I'm actually going to load this back with around 45% fuel since we'll be landing in Harbin. And then we can go back to full fuel. So yeah, today's going to be a pretty big day. I know there's been a lot going on this past couple days with all sorts of stuff in the news. But I'm not really interested in talking about that today. Like, there's a time and place to talk about this sort of thing, but right now is not that great of a time. I try to keep it positive and all that. I'm going to go ahead and get taxiing to the runway. We're going to take off here at we're going to take off. There's not much of a taxiway, but we can take off here at runway 12. Let's take off runway 12. Let's get this thing taxied. With you there, 100%. Yeah, there's just been a lot go. That's why I'm kind of glad. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad I didn't have to be flying anymore. At least I'm glad I didn't have to fly over Russia a bit anymore. Just because, you know, with all the news, it wouldn't be a good time to fly over Russia. Okay. And do this. I'm going to go ahead and set the one stage of flaps. And I'm going to do... Okay, this will work. Put it into the green. There you go. Our safe altitude for taking off is going to be around 4,000 feet is the safe altitude for at least for the trip to our first stop. And we're off. Okay, we're now off. We're going to continue to climb. I can now put up the flap. So we're now back up. You know, I think probably if I were to pick my next plane purchase, it would probably be the Arrow. Both the Arrow and the Warrior. Because a lot of people have that plane, but I don't. Probably should get it at some point. So flying with me is Count Zepp. Count Zepp's flying with me, and Martel is also here as well. They're both here with me as well. Flying for Paul. Hey! Flying with Paul. Good to have you here. If you guys haven't checked out Flying for Paul, really chill content creator, and he's doing an around the world play, all of which is for charity. For the move number, and if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I forgot probably the other charity you're doing. Let me go. people look at the channel. I'm sorry. But he's doing all of this for a good cause. So I recommend you guys check out Flying for Paul. Oh yeah, he also donates to the National Axial Arthritis Society. My apologies on my butcher. But seriously, I think you guys should check out Flying for Paul. No problem, Paul. Anyone that flies for a good cause and supports charity, I think is earned my respect. So this is my 1926 Berlin-Beijing trip, and we're actually flying to Harbin today. We're gonna make our way to our first stop here in, I think we're safe. We can actually just lower the, we can trim down a bit. But we're making our first stop here at Dongshan Airport at Ulan-Ulan. That is where we're making our first stop here today. So, I got my slides ready for today. I got my slides ready. And this here is the city of let me go. Oh, airlock dock just rated. Holy crap. Airlock dock rated with a party of 5. Airlock. What's up? Airlock dock, how did you tour Japan go today? I remember you flying over Nagasaki. That was when where it was nuclear bombed during World War II. It was nuked. Can't believe they still found a way to manage to rebuild that city after being nuked. Like, pretty crazy. But it's great to have you here, Raiders. Dave Rendon, great to have you here. Welcome to the stream, Dave Rendon. Good to have you here. So, today we're going to go a little introductions. This is the China. More specifically, officially it is known as the People's Republic of China. So, the People's Republic of China, the modern day People's Republic of China came around in 1949 at the end of the Chinese Civil War. But in fact, China's history goes way back to all the way back to over 5,000 years. It is the world's most populous country on the planet with over 1.4 billion people. Yes, not million, billion people. It also is considered to be the 3rd or 4th largest country, depending on who you ask, about the whole Taiwan thing and all that. The country also consists of 23 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities, and 2 special administrative regions. China emerged as one of the world's first civilizations on the entire planet on the fertile basin of the Yellow River in the North China Plain. And China has been probably one of the world's most foremost economic powers for the most of the 2 millennia from the 1st century. And it didn't take until the 19th century where China fell behind the other parts of the world. I mean, that's pretty crazy to think about China. China obviously is known for lots of things. For one, China's geographically spans 5 different time zones and borders 14 different countries. On top of this as well, there's lots of different things China was known for. It's 4 great inventions as well. China is also famous for the 4 great inventions of the country: the compass, gunpowder, paper making, and printing. And those 4 inventions particularly completely changed the world as we know it. The compass obviously is for direction tools and has been used in navigation, exploration of fields. Paper making is important as well. Who could forget about gunpowder, because that's where a lot of, not just fireworks, but firearms, all that got their invention here in China. Have a good one, Viper. Hate to raid and run, but you have something to cheer with. No, thank you, Airlock Doc. Thanks so much. And by the way, here's a shout out for you. Airlock Doc, really cool streamer, really good friend of mine of the channel. Well, thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. So I usually do these PowerPoints here for these guys new in chat. I usually do these PowerPoints for every single trip of the journey. Now, for guys who are here for the first time, let me talk about this journey before we get any further. So this here is the 1926 Berlin to Beijing flight. This was originally done by Deutsche Lufthansa, and the plane they flew is the G-24. That's because that's what the plane was there originally at the time. But however, since the G-24 isn't in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I wanted to use very much the next best thing, and that is the Ju-52, which is the further evolution of the G-24. Compared to the Ju-52, it's definitely considerably slower at a max speed of 110 knots, whereas the Ju-52 can get around 143 max, and the Ju-52 has way more range. But the G-24 though was great for the night flights, because it's one of the few planes that can actually use it. Deutsche Lufthansa was the main airliner we are flying from. We actually took off from Berlin-Tempelhof all the way back in the journey, and Deutsche Lufthansa was one of the first airliners to do night flights, where they flew from Berlin to Königsberg, which is now Kaliningrad, Russia. They took off here from Berlin-Tempelhof, one of the iconic airports in Europe, especially during the 1930s. It was the most iconic airport of all time. And this is the book, and Nightsep, he's here in chat. Nightsep is the one who actually gave me this book, and it's titled Rob Guangdong, Not Peking, in a Big Plane to Beijing. And in that book, it covers quite a few things. Here's the crew on top. The top right picture is the crew. Dr. Robin Noss is the one who did commission the whole journey to begin with. Down over here is D903, and if you guys haven't seen it, D903 is the plane we're taking for the trip. So I want to keep it true to the spirit of the original flight. And the reason they did this trip was because they wanted to go through Europe to Asia faster without having to go through Africa. But the main reason was because of the Treaty of Versailles and the fact that Germany wasn't really welcome to the West. He took advantage of its surprising good relations with the USSR, and due to that, they could actually fly through the USSR, which is why we got to fly over all over Russia. Berlin, the route took us from Berlin to Königsberg, Malinovsk, Moscow, Kazan, Kurgan, Omsk, Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, Irkutsk, Chita, then Manzhouli, and then today's leg will take us into Harbin. And then from there we go to Shenyang, which is Mukden at the time, and then Peking, which is Beijing. Pretty simple stuff. This is just the simple basics of the route. So that's what we're doing today. But like I said, in fact, if you guys want me to, I can go ahead and I can actually post the notes in Discord. You guys can keep track of all the notes I write at some point. That way, you guys know what that way you guys can actually study a little bit what I'm talking about. So I think that's pretty good. So thank you guys so much for coming here on the raid. So yeah, the weather conditions here are not so great, and that's because I have the notes from Nightsep. And he told me that they were bad, the dark rain clouds, the visibility is poor, low winds, the wind, the wind's kind of strong. I could make the wind a little stronger. I didn't know how the wind was. I guess I could do this. Yeah, I could. Hey, Mechanical Madness, good to have you here. I'm doing great. I just got away from airlock. Yeah, and the wind's kind of strong today. This is going to get interesting with the wind. This is going to get interesting. It's good to have you here. Oh, by the way, if you guys haven't heard of Mechanical Madness, he's got a lot of his scenery on Flight Sim TO. Oh, that was a real bad weather day. It was. I didn't know what nights up though. I didn't know what the notes say about how. I put dense cloud. I didn't know if they had rain. I know they said rain clouds. They didn't say about rain. So that's. I don't know how I can make it even lower visibility because they did say that. Need something like this. Just dense clouds. Yeah, dense clouds. Poor visibility. Yeah. Thanks, Viper. No worries. Yeah, the visibility here is really bad. Though later on there will be some bright spots. So from my pre-notes beforehand, the following night they left to Harbin. Now in this plane there was a Chinese pilot, and he spoke fluent French during that time. And the reason was because he trained in France during the First World War, and he called him a very valuable help while landing at these airports in China. So we're heading to Albar first, and we're gonna have to take on fuel, which is necessary because of the strong headwind. I had a tailwind. There. Okay. Yeah, I had a tailwind. So I need to change the headwind. I don't know how fast, so... I say 15 knots headwind would be pretty good. Just, yeah, the wind's bad here today. At least the good news is the Yonkers is quite stable, so I don't have to worry about it. Now, flying with me today, guys, is Count's up. He's the one who brought the notes, and he's worked on all of that for me. He got all the notes for flight notes for the book, and he also flies a lot on my flight. He's been flying with me for nearly every leg of the trip. But down below is a good friend of mine on the channel, Martel. Martel's here as well. So our first stop here is going to take us, we're going to actually make our landing here. We're actually going to be going to Ulan-Uber. So back to what I said earlier about the people from talking about China. China's got so much history, but we'll cover it though in each of the sections. So we're going to go visit Ulan-Uber, which is going to be where we're going to be landing for our first stop trip. Now, this place here is a region. It's not just a city, it's actually a region. It's actually governed as a prefecture city in northeastern Inner Mongolia, which is one of the autonomous regions. Its main center is the Halyar district, which is its largest urban area. Most well known in this area, though, are the high steps of the grassland. where the Ulan and Blue Lakes are from, alongside the Kinigan Range, which is a volcanic mountain range in the area. It borders Russia to the north and west, Mongolia to the south and west, and the Heilongjiang province to the east, and direct south is the direct south. This area actually is quite diverse in linguistics, because there is Mandarin Chinese, dialects of Mongolian, the Duar Mongolic languages, and even some Huntsky languages, mainly spoken by people. The history of Kolodor goes all the way back to the Qing Dynasty, from 1644 to 1912. It was actually a part of the Heilongjiang province. But in 1850, the Treaty of Igon was established, and it established today's approximate Russian-Chinese border at the great loss of its territory of the time. In 1901, the Chinese Eastern Railway linked Kolodor to the rest of northeast China and the Russian Far East. And from 1912 to 1949, the Republic of China, it was part of the Heilongjiang province. A treaty between the Russian Empire and the Republic of China was established in 1915 as a special agreement. Then, in 1929, the Soviets invaded, and the Japanese invaded China, and this became part of the Japanese puppet state of Manchuria. And during the Chinese Civil War, the Communist Party gained support of the leaders here, and after the Communist Revolution in 1949, it was annexed into the Inner Mongolian region of China. The population of this area is around 2.7 million in 2004, and the jurisdiction of this area of the city is larger than all but 8 of the Chinese provincial divisions. And it's actually larger than 42 of the United States as well. It's pretty big, isn't it? So yeah, despite being this small area, it's actually bigger than 42 of the 48 of the United States of America. Did they have to pause the flight when they had no air conditions? I don't think so. They're brave people. I don't think they would pause the flight. Unless it's so severe they couldn't. But I don't really think so. But I don't think they canceled the flight. Let me just turn this back around. So that is going to be Ulaanbaatar. So yeah, like I said earlier, despite the fact that this thing doesn't have much population, it's bigger than 42 of the 50 United States of America. They landed to take on more fuel. Exactly. That is something in the notes I just said earlier. They had to take more of it. But so far the scenery is already more interesting. There's quite a few of the rocks and stuff down below. You can see right here. Now the airport we're landing here is Halyar Airport, DVLA. And this is what they did for a lot of domestic flights all over China. Now the city we're visiting is going to, I think it's the Halyar district. Now the Halyar district, for those who don't know, is an urban district that serves as the prefecture level city of Ulaanbaatar. Due to its massive size, it's a city administrative services, and it's been long known as the Pearl of the Grassland, and acts as a gateway between China and Russia. Its population is around 365,000 people, and is a regional center for all sorts of commerce, trade, and transportation. And mainly it's on the famous western line of the Trans-Siberian Express route and in the China National Highway 301. Wow. So definitely pretty cool. We're going to be visiting that next. The next stage, they had to turn around the first attempt because of back condition. Yeah, they had to turn around the first attempt. Yeah, that was something in the notes. Definitely pretty crazy to think about. Yeah, the visibility here is not great, though. At least the good news is, now, here's another thing too, guys. If you guys don't know, most of the routes we're actually following the Trans-Siberian Railway, and that's really what we're mainly following is that railway. We're not following directly by the railway, but this is what the pilots often use to fly around the area. Now, if you guys are liking this content, by the way, if you guys like this content a lot, don't be afraid to smash this follow button. I also do have a Discord to keep up with the latest like and such, and I also have my previous VODs on the other platform. So don't be afraid to check them out. Just stretching out. So yeah, we're following one of the rivers. This is the Halyar River. Following that. So I want to ask you guys, I hope you guys are currently having a great weekend so far. I know there's been a lot going on, like I said earlier. So I'm hoping everyone's doing alright during this time. it's great so that we learn all these new places and information. Yep. And that's what I like to do on my streams, guys. And for those who've been here for the first time, I like to teach these people new locations and to learn more about them. That way, I think Flight Sim's great for educational and geography. And that way, I think it'd be great. That way, because I think it's a big issue, like a geography. Nights up, we definitely feel spring is approaching, so that's good. Yeah. Hey, Dougal McTavish, good to see you. Can't take part as I'm working. No worries, Dougal. Thank you for coming by at least to say hi in chats. Oh, this is going to be a good flight, Dougal. Jane, though you're going to not be here with work. I hope things with work go really well for you. And oh yeah, and guys, one more thing. By the way, tomorrow is Sim Update Day. So don't forget to actually take everything out of your community folder for a bit. Trust me, you're gonna be pretty thankful you probably did, because it's gonna change quite a few things. It's gonna alter more than a few things. So just gonna let you guys know. But yeah, so Dougal, we're flying our way into Harbin. We're gonna fly from Manchuria. We're gonna make a land in Ulaanbaatar, and fly the rest of the trip to Harbin. So that's gonna be our trip. The visibility's not great though. Gear up. Maybe I'm a little late. Oh, forget to not put your gear up. Yeah, the weather here is not good at all. But at least it could have been worse. It could have been at the middle of night. That would make things significantly worse. Just like the first leg of the trip was at night. I couldn't really even see. Gear up is really useful. Yeah, and this thing, I also have a pretty pronounced headwind too. Good. Yeah, pretty peaceful flight here today. Thankfully there's no rain or storms. So, not really worried about it. If you flew the Junkers, you wouldn't have any of those issues. Yeah. I wonder why my power stations are that different. Oh. really have to do that next week. No worries, Martel. I'm not really worried. Like I said, if you don't have, like I said, I have the other planes there for a reason. So let's get back outside to the cockpit. As you can see out here, the visibility here is not good. The visibility here is not good at all. Hardly no visibility. No, nothing. Oh, let me go ahead. Let me go ahead. So we're gonna fan. I have to fan someone. There. Sorry, no bots. I recently bought the Skymaster from Colorado. After about 2 hours, I realized the gear was retractable. Yeah, I know a lot of Cessna planes don't have retractable gear, like a lot of like the 206s, their 182s. So yeah, I could definitely understand why you'd be surprised the thing does have retractable landing gear. Yeah, but yeah, that Skymaster definitely is a really interesting plane. Like maybe if I were to, maybe I would like the Skymaster, but I don't know. We should get here pretty quickly. Around 30 miles away from our first stop. It is a lovely plane. Ah. Okay. I've now sped it up a little bit faster. So, there you go. But it's great to have you guys here. Thank you so much. So, we still have 97 in front. And then to my left side is Martel. So we're about 30 miles out from our first stop here at Berlin-Beijing. Actually, we're about 25 miles from our stop, actually. So we get here pretty quickly. No, I think maybe you'll say the Skymaster may be carrying all of us. So maybe I'm interested in it. we're gonna actually land on runway 09. We're gonna land there. We're gonna go land straight in. If you guys like to join in, I'm on the East USA server. So my backup, in case if all else failed, is Southeast Asia. And my route for today is here. So we're making our stop at Zulu Bravo Lima Alpha. Now a bit about the airport. This airport, like I said, serves many of the Chinese regional airliners, including airliners like Air China, Chengdu Airlines, Shanghai Airlines, and more. And there's our airport right over here. There's our airport. So we see our airport down here. We can make the preparations for landing. Hey, Team and Nathan has agreed with a party of 3 people. Hey, Team H Nathan, good to have you here. Let's give him a shout out. Grafton 11 has just followed. Great to have you here, Grafton 11. Thank you so much for coming here today, Nathan. I hope you had a fantastic stream. Everything go well. And there's Mart. Mart is spit. Look out! Didn't see you there, Mart. Okay, I wasn't expecting you to show up. Alright, I thought I heard the sound of Berlin. Look at Martin's spit. That is pretty. Now here's Wuhan Theodore. Here's the downtown area. Good afternoon, Grafton 11. Thanks for coming, Grafton. I hope things are going well. I'm doing great, Team H Nathan. I'm going to go ahead and my first landing here. At Zulu Bravo Lima Alpha. We're flying over currently the city of Ulaanbaatar. And the full journey is actually going to take us, let me load this flight plan back up. We're going from Manzhouli, we're going to make a landing here at CPLA, get fuel, and fly all the way 345 rest of the trip to Harbin, the largest city in northeastern China. So that is our trip, and here is Ulaanbaatar, a major train post for China and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the landing. And trust me, we're going to see a lot of really big cities in China because, you know, with a population of 1.4 billion people, yes, billion, we're going to have lots of people here from China. So we're going to go ahead and make our landing here. Put 2 stage of flaps. I'm going to put it right here. That way the plane can stabilize. And then we need to go here to get some more fuel since we're going to need it with this strong headwind. So it's great to have you guys here. Thank you so much for the raid. So the main topic of today's flight, if you guys don't mind sticking around, I'm going to try to give you a summarized 5,000 plus years of history of China. Yeah, if you thought Russian history was one thing, history of China is a whole nother animal. Oh, that's actually the wrong airfield. What the heck? Whoops. That was another airfield. That's not in Sim. That was another airfield. Okay, I went to the wrong airport. Yeah, the main international airport's up here. Oh my goodness. What a fool I am sometimes. I got confused. No, I got fooled. I'm sorry there, Bartel. Hey, that happens to the best of us, even Murph. So let me go ahead and take a picture of Ulaanbaatar for the trip. There. That was weird. My apologies. Oh. Okay, we're gonna land on the one on the right. It's the only active runway. We'll go ahead and put flaps. So yeah, there's a lot of these buildings here, but that isn't the biggest city. Trust me on this one, guys. There have been even bigger cities in China. There are way bigger cities. We're gonna go ahead and make our landing here. Hey, Splasher6, good to see you. Guys who don't know, Splasher6 is probably one of my longest supporters of the channel. He's helped me out a lot, and he's just a really awesome guy in the community. Good to have you, Splasher6. The flight going well? It is. I almost went to the wrong airport. It wasn't marked in the sim. Oh, good luck at trying to get that Spitfire down. This is going to be very interesting. For me, I'm doing with low visibility and some headwinds. This should be interesting. Gonna go ahead, careful with the lane. I landed at 228 feet per minute. Let me go ahead and get stop here for a second and grab some fuel because we need to be getting fuel. Yes. So we stop here and go to max fuel. We're gonna need all the fuel we can. So we're gonna go ahead and grab fuel. They need it because of all that headwind. So we're gonna go back out and try to take back off again. Not bad for a serious crosswind. Yep. And I'm back off again. Decided to head back off in the air again. Oh, there's Mongo here. Mongo's here in the Twin Otter. Nice, Twin Otter. That thing's a beast for the short takeoffs. If this was a bush, I was thinking about maybe doing this live weather. No, Bart. Bart, if you want to know the weather, it is the Weather Preset Pro Dense Clouds, and I just increased the coverage and changed some of the wind and such. That way to match the poor visibility we have here today. Because the cloud visibility here is really, really good. So that is the weather for today, Mark. But thank you so much for asking. Just circle around the airfield, waiting for everyone else to get back in the air. Yeah, the Junkers is just great for these journeys. You don't need much. It's really easy to trim. Okay, everyone else is back in the air. This is nice. Okay. We're going to go back to the 137 degrees. And we're going to definitely need some climbing because so now we're going to go up here. And this is going to be for 200 nautical miles. So we reach our waypoint in QQ-Har. This definitely be interesting. In the air with me today We have Martel. We have Mongo in the DHC-6, the Havilland DHC-6 twin otter. Bart is actually in the Spitfire. He's still on the ground. And further ahead of me, I believe. Yeah, that's nice up. He's further ahead of me. Probably need to increase my trim a bit. Because we're going to have to climb a bit because we're going to get through some hills. We're going to have to climb a bit. Yeah, you can definitely tell we got quite a bit of a headwind today. So I'm going to go over some of this history stuff. Now we're going to go talk about my main topic for today. And this is the history of China. Now, you see, China is unique among the world. China has probably some of the longest lasting history on the entire world. Now, China's history is super unique in the sense that China's history goes way back. So let's talk about the first one. This is prehistory. Now, hominids have inhabited this area around 2.25 million years ago, when apparently people found fossils of a hominid named a caveman was discovered at a cave near Beijing, and they have been dated, and this particular skull has been dated between 680,000 to 780,000 years ago. Have discovered them. They also found some primitive proto-writing of the old Chinese that existed around 7,000 years ago in several areas. Some people say that those old symbols back in the day, these Diahu symbols, they represented the earliest systems of writing in China. And the Chinese language is quite unique as a writing system as well. Pretty cool. Next we get to the early dynasties. So the first original dynasty that came to China was the Dia, or the Dia Dynasty, and they emerged around 2100 BC. Now, according to Chinese tradition, The Dia Dynasty was established by the legendary Yu the Great after Shu, the last of the 5 emperors of China, gave the throne to him. And basically, for those who are not aware of Chinese legend, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were 2 groups of mythological rulers in ancient northern China. Around apparently the legends go around from 3162 BCE to 27. Yu the Great now formed the first major dynasty in all of China. We don't know how long it lasted of that, but it goes way, way back. Originally, some people thought, because of the lack of documentation, people thought this dynasty was kind of a mythical dynasty. However, later on, during the 1950s and early 60s, they found excavations at some of the early Bronze Age sites of the Earlton, and they discover a Dia Dynasty. So it wasn't so mythical after. Though there's still some questions about the dynasty itself, but yeah, they go way back. But the first modern dynasty everyone probably knows of is the Shang Dynasty, and that is the earliest to be confirmed by modern contemporary records. The Shang were the first dynasty, and the Shang ruled there from 1600 BC to 1046. And a bit of a fact about the original dynasty, they lasted their dynasties for over a millennium as well. And this Shang Dynasty ruled from the Yellow River of eastern China from the 17th century BC to the 11th century. And some of the oldest records came from 1500 BCE from the Oracle Bone script. And this is actually right here in the picture. The picture here is actually one of the oldest of Chinese writing. And they consider it to be the cradle of Chinese writing, and that's located in Yinzhou, the capital, and that was the capital of the late Shang Dynasty. And you can find all sorts of their stuff from in the Yellow River and other sorts of sites. But they found lots of all sorts of traditional historical sites, and bronze work too. However, the Shang were eventually conquered by the Zhou Dynasty, who ruled between the 11th and 5th century BCE. Though their centralized authority was weakened by the feudal warlords, and some principalities emerged from the weakened Zhou Dynasty, and it launched a 300-year spring and autumn period. By the time the Warring States period happened, there were only 7 states left during the ancient China. As well, in the Zhou Dynasty, for those who don't know, they're known for their feudalistic power, and then obviously the beginning of the Mandate in Heaven, which is one of East Asia's most enduring political doctrines. The Mandate of Heaven, that's been for a lot of other emperors until the very last ruler of China, Qing Dynasty. The Zhou Dynasty's Mandate of Heaven was unique. Their doctrine basically embodies the natural order will of the universe, and it bestows the mandate on a just ruler of China. And basically a moral superiority, and that's began as a religious compact between people of the Zhou and the Sky God, and it still lasted all the way to a lot of the decade. Then we got to the Warring States, and apparently the Warring States quite around for the that time as well, between the 5th and 3rd century BCEs. And one of those things found in the Warring States era was a book called The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu. And that book has been used a lot in China during that. And that used in all sorts of military thinking, business tactics, legal strategies, lifestyles, and beyond. It's been used massively as a cultural impact. That came after the fall of the Zhou Dynasty. 5th century. However, the period of the Warring States actually ended all the way back to 221 BCE, when the state of Qing conquered the other 6 kingdoms and reunited China. King Zedong proclaimed himself as the first emperor of the Qing Dynasty. And what they did was enacted lots of different reforms throughout China. They standardized the Chinese characters, which were the major part of the Chinese language. They added different measurements, like hieroglyphs and all that, and also currency. You see, the Qin had a strong reform on currency as well. And one of those areas thought was also Confucianism was influential. And that's because the Qing were very legalist. However, that dynasty also fell too. Because that dynasty only lasted for 15 years despite him being in power, and that was because the first emperor died, and his harsh authoritarian policy led to rebellion, and that rebellion led to a civil war, and it eventually was fixed by the Han Dynasty, and they ruled China from 206 BC to 220 AD, and then it was split ever since. As due to all the unpopular rebellions that happened during that time. Which led us to the Han Dynasty. The Han expanded a lot of the territory here. They expanded all the way into Central Asia, Mongolia, and Yunnan, near Vietnam. However, in addition, the Han were also very important for another reason. You see, the Han Dynasty actually established a very important land route, aka the Silk Road. And before the rise of modern shipping and all of that sort of thing, the Silk Road was an extremely important part For those who don't know, the Silk Road is one of the most important trade routes in history. It established many different links between many different cultures and different countries. Replacing the earlier path of the Himalayas to India, despite the Han's initial decentralization and abandonment of legalism, they still continue employed by the Han government and its professors, legalists. Eventually, this led to the Han's eventual downfall later on. The Han also were quite known for a couple other things about the Han Dynasty. For one, there's a strict social order in the hierarchy. The emperor was the apex of the government, followed by like officials, nobles, slaves, farmers, and all that as well. So, and like I said, the Han also have a deep amount of literature, including the teachings of legalism, Taoism, Confucianism as well. There's also the Imperial University. Alongside with different kinds of foods, they had all sorts of different foods, clothing, religion. The Han Dynasty, despite being a pretty short dynasty, was still very important for China. All sorts of medicines and all that too. The Hans are one of the most influential dynasties in all of modern China. However, the Han Dynasty eventually fell, and one of the reasons it actually fell during this timeline was because of all the different rebellions, and it caused a very unique era of China. There was a period of strife that came after the fall of the Hans, and it's a period that I think some people might actually know quite well. known as the era of the Three Kingdoms. Now, for a lot of you guys want to ask, what is the Three Kings era, basically? The Qing Three Kingdoms were a tripart division of China, alongside the states of Hui, Shu, and Wu. And it lasted from the end of the Han Dynasty, followed by the Jin Dynasty. Now, many people consider the Three Kings era of China to be the bloodiest in Chinese history. In 2 AD, when all this was over, the people of the Jin had a population of 2 million people. Now, I know that's pretty crazy, but compare that before the Han era of around 56 billion people. That, while the census may not have been exactly accurate, that's pretty crazy that around nearly 54 million people died somehow during this whole thing. It was brutal back in the day. There was lots of different power struggles, and there's all sorts of very violent wars going all over China. It is pretty crazy. And its impact on popular culture is very popular. And the most influential example is the 14th century novel known as Romance of the Three Kingdoms, written by Liu Guanzhang during the Ming Dynasty. And due to the popularity of the book, it became one of the most well-known non-modern Chinese eras in terms of characters and such. And it plays a big role in all sorts of things: books, TV dramas, films, anime, cartoons, games, and music. It's a very influential era in Chinese history. However, the end of it was that the predecessors of the state became the Jin Dynasty, as way beaten by the Jin Dynasty, and they would reunify China again. And the Jin Dynasty, though, however, didn't last too long. It only lasted for about 200 years until they fell as well. The Jin Dynasty, known as the Western Jin Empire. Now, the Jin Dynasty was known for its material culture, especially its green porcelain. Well, and Taoism was quite interesting as well. Buddhism was more popular in this new China because of it. As well. Unfortunately, what happened with the Qin that fell was the five barbarians invaded it, and a developmentally disabled emperor came to power. And the various successors in these states became known as the Northern and Southern Dynasty. And then those two areas were then reunified by the Sui Dynasty, 581 BC. However, that dynasty also didn't last. It only lasted for just over 30 years until it fell because of due to protests, a lot of widespread rebellions. But then we got to two pretty well-known dynasties afterwards, though. First would be the Tang and Song dynasties. So let's go over the Tang and Song dynasties for a bit. The Tang dynasty actually appeared twice. First from 1680 to 1690, and then from 705 to 907. The Tang Empire was called. And many historians consider the Tang to be a high point in Chinese civilization in the golden age of cosmopolitan culture. The Tang were well known for lots of things. First was many of the reforms their dynasty did. They built a new legal code that subsequent Chinese dynasties were models thereupon, alongside with neighbors like Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. With a new and reformed legal code and all that, they completely changed a lot of Chinese history. They also did imperial examinations as well to help to increase literacy and all that among the nobility and all that. They also did some pretty interesting changes with taxes and all that, and created a more accurate census of the population. Wow. Also, the Tang carry out many successful military conquests and all that through the time, and of course, the economy. The Tang is often used to still grow the maritime trade, to acquire new technologies, cultural practices, rare luxury, and contemporary items. They even acquired things from Europe, the Middle East, Central and South Asia. Most well known is the Silk Road. And as a result, the Tang had quite a bit of many different kinds of literature. So as a result, Tang Dynasty definitely is a very influential one. And the Shang Dynasty as well that came afterwards, and that ended the Five Kingdoms of prosperity. And the Songs, again, like the Tang era, technology, science, philosophy, and engineering flourish. The Shang Dynasty was the first in world history to issue banknotes or true paper money, and the first Chinese government to establish a permanent navy. And of course, the Shang were also known for gunpowder, as it was invented during this time. Fire arrows, bombs, and fire lead. They also found true north of the compass and even more. But basically what all those dynasties did was it greatly increased China and China's cultural, economic, and technological prowess. And between the 10th and 11th centuries, China doubled in size around to 100 million people, also because of the expansion of rice cultivation. And the abundance of food led to a population of nearly 100 million people. Hey, K-Ward, it's good to have you here. As well. And then all things looked good for China until, yeah, the Mongols. Yeah, because the Mongols invaded China by Genghis in 1205 by Genghis Khan. And for guys who don't know about Genghis, by the way, Genghis Khan is considered by many to be the most feared and most feared military leaders in world history. Also one of the biggest bloodshedders of all time, by the way. But yeah, Genghis Khan is one of the most influential leaders in history. And apparently, Genghis Khan's conquest led to a wholesale destruction on an unprecedented scale. He did mass exterminations, famine, demographic changes. His influence on Asia and even into Europe still has an impact even to this day thanks to the Mongols. Yeah, but he invaded China all the way back starting in 1205 with the conquest of the Western Asia by Genghis Khan, and by 1271 the Mongol leader Kublai Khan established the Yuan Dynasty, conquered the last remnant of the Song in 1279. I'm doing well, K-Wart. I'm just talking a bit about Chinese history for a bit. And you wonder, how the heck did the Mongols manage to conquer China? Well, the Mongols had some big advantages. The Mongols' tactics on horseback, the Mongols on horse were extremely strong, as the Mongols were extremely competent on horseback. Their attacks on horse made them so powerful. And what they did was that the Mongols, they developed the problems they had in their previous assault fortification, and they actually had the help of Chinese engineers, and they took down these fortifications. And they made the Mongols such great besiegers in the history of warfare. They also managed to find a way to get around the Great Wall of China. And their conquest took a bit of a while, but the fact they managed to even take down something as powerful as China is extremely impressive for the Mongols. And that established the Yuan Dynasty. Now, the Yuan's dynasty as well were the last, are the dynasty ruled by the Mongols. They lasted from 1271 to 1638. Now, the Yuan are most well known for their science and technology. Mainly, algebra was advanced here in the Yuan Dynasty. They also did mathematics for calendars during that time as well. Also, the medicines as well, with all sorts of different techniques that were brought to the West, like acupuncture, moxibustion, and pulse diagnostics. And Western medicine was also practiced in China by some of the historians. They also did some printing and publishing as well, and ceramics too. In fact, it was the Yuan that actually spread Chinese ceramics to around the world. There's definitely some very interesting things about the Yuan as well. But eventually that dynasty fell in 1638 when a peasant named Zhu Yuanzhang led a rebellion. And he overthrew the Yuans and replaced it as the Honghu Emperor, and he started a new dynasty. Probably for many people considered to be one of its most well-known dynasties, the Ming. And the Ming Dynasty brought China into another golden age. The Ming Dynasty ruled from 1638 to 1644, and was the last imperial dynasty of China ruled by the Han Chinese as well. The original Honghu Emperor created a society of self-sufficient rural communities as well, and supported classic dominant soldiers. The army of the Ming during the time exceeded over 1 million troops. Now, I know 1 million doesn't sound impressive today, but you gotta consider, this was back in the 1300s. That army is colossal. And they also had one of the largest navies on the planet, too, in Nanjing as well. The Ming were entered a new golden age in many different fields as well. Different institutions in 6 different ministries, including personnel, revenue, rights, war, justice, and public works. They also had a golden age of arts, literature, painting, poetry, music, and opera as well. There's also the different teachings of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism are popular religions as well. And of course, science and technology as well. And while the Ming have fewer advancements compared to the rest of the world, later advances of China with the Ming were spurred by contact in Europe. Particularly, the telescope came to China as well from Europe, alongside the modern Chinese calendar as well, and more. In fact, the Ming were very much intrigued with European technology, and so the other way around. But yeah, the Ming were very, very powerful in trade. In fact, the Ming Dynasty was very intrigued with technology too. So, like I said, there's a lot of change with the Ming. However, eventually all good things come to the end with the Ming Dynasty, as well, the Qing Dynasty of Manchuria. And during the early years of the Ming, they moved to Beijing. In 1644, Beijing was captured by a coalition of rebels led by Li Qing, and he created the last dynasty of China, the Qing Dynasty. The Qing Dynasty lasted from 1644 all the way to its abdication in 1912. In terms of territory by landmass, it was actually the largest Chinese dynasty. It went all the way from modern-day China, all the way north to Mongolia, and even some bits of Russia. At the height of its power, he led the Tang campaigns, led by the Qianlong Emperor, and extended Qing control all the way to enter Asia, and all that sort of stuff. The Qing were well known for their deep economy with silver, as China had lots of silver, tea, silk manufacturers, and that made the Qing quite powerful at the time. Also, in addition, Qing carried on the strengths of astronomy, mathematics, and geography, along with technologies in ceramics and stuff. Contrary to some stereotypes, the Qing Dynasty officials actually explored a lot of the technologies that came in from Christian missionary, like cannon and gunpowder. However, they also had great arts in culture too, like fine arts, literature, and However, you wonder, how exactly did this whole dynasty fall apart? Well, you see, that dynasty kind of fell apart due to one thing. There's a couple things that happened, but the biggest reason that Qing Dynasty fell, though, was because the Western European world has finally caught up with China. And the first major domino to fall was something called the Opium War with Britain and France. Now, the whole background going with the Opium Wars was the opium trade from India, and they wanted to trade with China as well. They sold to private traders who transported to China and passed it to Chinese smugglers. That led to the first opium. And apparently China's had an issue with opium, and it led to addiction. The Chinese emperor issued an edict making opium illegal. But the imports grew as smugglers and colonial officials saw profit. And as a result, due to the lack of trade between China and Britain, the East India Company, the Brits declared war on the Chinese, and they completely overwhelmed China during that time. Despite the British having only 19,000 troops and 37 ships, the Brits only lost 69 people in that entire war were killed, with 451 wounded and 284 executed, compared to the 3,000 that died in the first opium war. In that first Opium War, was ended during the Treaty of Nanking. It established 5 different treaty ports. If Shanghai, Canton, Ningpo, Fuzhou, and Amoy, but the biggest territorial change was that Britain got access to the Hong Kong island, which was a big deal. The second Opium War happened in the 1850s. And again, the British, French, and even the US got involved. And the Qing Dynasty continued to lose a lot of men, despite the British and French being weaker with manpower. The Franco-British still dominated. They lost way fewer people than the Chinese. In that time, Outer Manchuria was ceded to Russia, Blue Peninsula and Stonecutters Island were ceded to the United Kingdom as part of Hong Kong. It led to the Treaty of Anson and the Convention of Peking, and this was the beginning of the unequal treaties, the first of them. Then about 50 years later, we have the Sino-Japanese War. You see, unlike the Chinese, the Japanese actually modernized in that time. They established and developed a modern military and a modern state very powerful. And that's because of the Meiji Restoration back in Japan. And the fact that the Sino-Japanese War just showed how much modernization could change between China and Japan. And it really showed and emphasized the failure of the Qing Dynasty to not modernize its military. While Japan had the successful Meiji Restoration, and now the dominance of Asia was shifted between China to Japan. And the Japanese completely dominated that conflict. As Korea was now given to the Japanese in the Treaty of Shimonoseki. China also ceded Taiwan, Penghu, and the Liaodong Peninsula to Japan. and it led to a lot of the doubts. As well. So, and then there's also internal unrest where tens of millions of people died in some of the rebellions, including the White Lotus Rebellion. Then there's the Taiping Rebellion that also ravaged China. Lots of different failures. And then to top it off to make it even worse, there was also the Boxer Rebellion in 1899 and 1901. And in order to quell this rebellion, they had to send the 8-nation alliance of the British Empire, Russia, Japan, France, Germany, the United States, Italy, and Austria-Hungary were sent to quell the Boxer Rebellion. It only took about a year, but they actually outright beat the Chinese, and they signed the Boxer Protocol. Despite the Boxers and Chinese having way more troops than the Europeans, it was the Chinese that overwhelmingly suffered defeat. When you put all this together, the dynasty was completely weakened, so something had to change, and eventually the Xinhai Revolution of 1911 brought the end to the Qing Dynasty and established the Republic of China, which finally ended over 5,000 years of monarchy. So, I think that's it for part 1 of the PowerPoint. This talks about the older history of China. I hope you guys actually liked it. Let me know if you like it or not. If you have any questions about the history of all of it, don't be afraid to let me know. Because I think your feedback is going to be really important for me. But yeah, that's the history of China. That's a bit of the early history of China. This is their, and I'm talking about the imperial history of it. So that is China's imperial history. Definitely a very interesting topic to talk about here today. I know this wasn't a really easy thing for me to do. This wasn't very easy for me to do at all. Especially, it's not easy to cover 5,000 plus years of Chinese dynasty history. And I hopefully give you a bit of a summary what each of the other dynasties was known for in China. Well done. Thanks a bunch. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Knights Up. Like I said, I put a lot of work into this sort of stuff. Let's go ahead and see who else is here with us today. So we actually have Mongol in the otter. There's Martel and Count Zep over to the right, trying to re-get back to the line. Really cool. There were so many points I wasn't aware of. Yeah, there was a lot of things about China's history that I think a lot of people didn't know. It's not easy to talk about China's 5,000 plus years history. I definitely like the scenery on here today. Yeah, definitely lots of little hills around Manchuria. This is the hillside of Manchuria. Definitely a very interesting hillside. We should get pretty close to clear. Now let's talk about the notes. So, in the notes said from Dr. Robert Noss, they crossed through the Shingen mountain range. And a lot of this was unexplored wilderness when he flew here. And where no man has set foot here yet. And they actually spot some herds of red deer below them, but they didn't see any of the tigers that live here. And of course, he also had some huge issues with wind. The mountains to the left and right, so we were afraid to crash at any point. I know we're probably higher than we should. But once we are over the mountains, the valleys widen and the sun comes out again. So we're gonna, once we fly over here, I'm gonna set the weather so you can see the sun. Hey, Sergeant Staff 123, good to have you here, Sergeant Staff. I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for coming here today. I'm doing great. I just talked over a bit about the 5,000 plus years of history of China. I'm talking about I'm currently did part 1 of this whole thing, which is the imperial history of China. Later on in the stream, I'll talk about the modern history with the Republic of China, the Chinese Civil War, the Second Sino-Japanese War, the PRC, the early history of the PRC, and then the contemporary history of modern China. That is the historical stuff. The flight is going well. I'm currently facing low visibility with a pretty harsh headwind. The winds here are not that great, so it's a kind of a windy flight. I am joined today by Knight Zep, Bongo 7, and Martel are flying with me today as well. But yeah, everything's going pretty well, Sergeant Staff. So, Sergeant Staff has got his own Twitch channel. He does a variety of streams, including Microsoft Flight Simulator and all that. So don't be afraid to check out Sergeant Staff. He has his own Twitch as well. You'll be AFK for a few minutes, no worries that. Don't be afraid to go AFK for a while. I don't mind. Yeah, there's Mongo on the big old TC6.0. Those twin turboprops. That's an unmistakable sound. Like, I know that Aerosol's going to be fixing those sounds soon, so once those sounds fixed, I mean, I'm going to love to play new music. So definitely very nice. Okay, we're now back on course. Yep, right. And I can finally be back. Let's see if I can actually put this. Let me see if I can find a way to put this autopilot on. Okay. Okay, for the heading. But yeah, the twin hour is really nice. Yeah, twin hour is great for the short takeoffs. as well. It's a great plane. You can do all the short takeoffs. I like the fact it comes with floats as well, floats and skis. By initially, I think it's great as well. Yeah, it's great for on-air and all that. For on-air and all that, it's great for it because it carries so many passengers and such. Twin Otter is such a versatile little plane. Such versatile. Yeah, you can put 21 people on the tours and you make a lot of money that way. Yeah, I've seen Captain Sappy fly in the Twin Otter quite a bit too. And I mean, it makes sense. It is a really good plane for that. Yeah, you work for Captain Sappy and his Alaska Bush Company. Yeah, I don't have on-air, but I see all the good work that Sappy's been doing for his for stuff on air, for on-air. Yeah, I maybe should try it out sometime, Sergeant Staff. When it goes correctly, yeah. I probably should try it out at some point. I probably need to watch a guide and all that, make sure I know what I'm doing. So I think we now just cleared over the hills and valleys. Nice, I think we just cleared over the last of the hills. Now we can begin our descent once we clear the last of the beginners. Now we can begin our descent. if you guys like where my content's going, I do have a Discord, and all my previous VODs are located here on the other platform. So don't be afraid to check them out. Yeah, the Ju-52 is fantastic. Yonkers is fantastic. I think for 15 bucks, it's one of the best planes you can get for the sim. The price range. Like, it may not be the most detailed plane in existence, but I mean, it may not be nearly as lifelike. But it's not a DC-6, but there's so many little things you can touch. Here's the autopilot. You can do the lights. Here's the modeling on this is amazing. It's definitely worth it. It definitely has the modeling quality of at least a $30 plane. Lots of really cool little gauges. The fact that it comes with multiple versions too, like floats and skis, I think only adds to the value of this thing. Plus a retrofit version for those who want a more modern tank. And all of this is based off real-life Yonkers planes too. But yeah, dollar for dollar, exactly for the price range. It's also great. It's just a great all-around plane to use. You can use this for passenger planes if you want to, for sightseeing. Because the Yonkers is fantastic as a sightseeing plane. You could also theoretically do lots of cargo stuff. Because remember, this plane, this is just the flight path. You can put almost over 7,000 pounds of cargo. You can do mass amounts of cargo. You can put passengers for sightseeing. You have all sorts. It's not the fastest plane in the world, but for 143 knots, it's actually pretty decently speedy. Like, it does a lot of things you would want. And of course, the performance on this is good. Well, yes, it's not the fastest speed. You'd be surprised that, I mean, you could take this off at places you wouldn't expect the plane to take off. You could put this in Papua New Guinea. And that's actually what they did in real life. There have been Yonkers used in Papua New Guinea. So, yeah, there's no question this plane is a workhorse. It's a complete workhorse, which is I love. And I've taken this thing on many a dirt strip, grass and dirt strip in the middle of the backcountry. I know what the Yonkers is true. So now apparently the clouds are starting to clear up here today, so we're going to go ahead and start clearing up the clouds. So let's go ahead and clear up the clouds. Clouds still a little dense. But now we're starting to see everything start to clear up. And that's important notes. Look at that. That looks amazing. Look at the clouds. That's stunning. But yeah, one more thing. Gotta disable the autopilot as well. And sometimes if I leave the autopilot like this, it drifts off into a random direction. There's Mongol, Martel, Sergeant Staff. Oh, Sergeant Staff in the Electra. Oh, I see him there. And then Zeph's AFK for a little bit. But man, what a beautiful sight here. What a sight. Yeah, the terrain here is much more interesting than for most of the legs of Russia. Yeah, definitely very nice to see here. direction. Yeah, I'll stick with the twins. All my custom profiles got blanked. Oh no. Oh, so I'll stick with the twins. Oh no. I'm so sorry to hear about that, Sergeant Staff. Yeah, that's really beautiful. It is. Like, there's still density in the clouds, but there's some sunny spells in this area. And the sun comes out again. But I still keep some dense clouds just because I will get it fixed. Just another thing. Yeah, no worries. Like I said. Yeah, like I said, I'll keep, like, the sun's coming out, but I still want some density. I still want some density in the clouds. And that's... taking a bit of overlooking the scenery here, and yeah, this is absolutely beautiful. Oh no, you did a 500 milligram fight when I found out my intro would work. Oh no. Yeah, that would suck, especially if my trials didn't work on the DC-6. Ouch. It is what it is. It is true. Yeah, this scenery here is awesome. The hills of Manchuria would, like I said, the hills of Manchuria definitely are very nice. Definitely some, and now we're entering the steppes. So then we get here to Qing. Should be approaching here pretty soon. It's about, yeah, about. I believe, yeah, it's about 50 nautical miles away. We should be getting here relatively smoothly. Makes me think about how to preserve my saints for the sim update 8. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Also, Splasher 6, don't forget, and this is for everyone, do not forget to unload your community folder tomorrow. Because Sim Update 8 is coming out, so please guys don't forget to do that. I know more than a few people would make that mistake, but please don't make that mistake. Hey, friends, all good to have you here. I'm not going to get Twitch notices. No worries, friend. All good to have you here. What is the time for tomorrow's update? Some update 8 is coming out tomorrow. I believe, if I'm believing so correctly, I think it's gonna come out. Don't remember what time it would be. Probably it's going to be, I think 11 a.m. most likely. 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I believe. Yeah, 8 a.m. I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's probably going to be around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe that it is. My main complaint about the Electric is sound. Yeah, it is loud. I'll just fly with the default points empty community filter until it's done. Yeah, I might be doing that as well. Maybe I'll do it not now, but I'll do it before going to bed. I'm now gonna fly a little. I'm gonna descend altitude until around 2,000 feet. I want to fly low for the rest of the trip. Fly a little low. There's no lower altitude. Okay, now time to bring it kind of kind of bring it back. Now keep things flying back to normal heading. Just like have a great time there, you usually do a couple updates before the send updates. Yeah. Actually, I'm thinking about this, Martel. Is it worth it for me to get the Just Flight arrows? I think it'd be worth it for me to get the Just Flight arrow bundle, which contains the normal arrows and the turbo. I think I probably should get it at some point, since a lot of people have it already. I probably need to get the arrows at some point. Like I said, I think I do need to get the arrows. So, our next city we're actually flying here today is going to be a new city. And that is this place here. This is called it's Qihar. Now, believe it or not, it's actually the second largest city in the Heilongjiang province of China, only behind the city of Harbin. Harbin's the capital, largest city. This is the second largest. With its metro area is around 9,787,000 inhabitants, while the total population of the city is actually 4,067,489 people. The main population consists of Han Chinese, though it's home to 34 different minorities, including Manchus, Yar, and Mongols. Now, close to the place is the numerous wetlands of the Zhalong Nature Reserve, which is famous in China for being home to numerous red-crowned cranes, which gives the city the unique nickname, the Crane City. Now, the name of the city is a reference to the local river Qi, while Hari references to defense. It literally means defense of Qi, and the name comes from the Manchu language of Tisihar. So it's Tisihar, basically. Now, the history of this goes way back to the old days, as it's one of the oldest cities in northeast China. The region was initially settled by the nomadic Dur and Tang's herdsmen. Tisihar means border or natural pasture, and the city's original name is Bukui, meaning auspicious. The city used to have an old mosque called the Bukui Mosque, and it predates the city by nearly 7 years. As Russia advanced eastward to the Pacific coast, it became a major garrison center in 1674, and a stronghold was constructed here due to the government's campaign against the Mongols. And then it was also a center for trade between Russia and China as well. This area was also involved in the Sino-Japanese War, and that was due to a false flag attack in the area, known as the Mukden incident, as well, and eventually became part of Manchuria, their Japanese puppet state. And this area was where the Japanese army established Unit 516 for research into chemical warfare. And apparently, during 2013, in 2003, there was a mustard gas tank that was left over from the war that was damaged, and it caused 43 injuries, and someone actually died because of it. After the fall of Japan, eventually returned back to the People's Republic of China, and they built many factories during the early period, including steel and heavy industry. And thus, it made the area an important industry of northeastern China. And the main part of the city is for manufacturing, as it's home to 95 large-scale manufacturing enterprises. It produced 30.6 billion yuan a year. So definitely, that's a bit about Tisihar. Just a little bit of knowledge about the city. You have to jump out, have a great flight. See you later, Sergeant Staff. I hope you have a good flight. I like them very much. Just at low speed, they're behaving a little shaky since Sim Update 5. Yeah, I can probably bet. But yeah, I definitely would love to get to try out the Piper. There's just by arrows. Hey, Nights Up, you're back. Yeah, if you notice, Sep, the weather's now clearing up. We still have the headwind, but everything's cleared up the way they should, and I'm flying around 2,000 feet, and we're going to go fly over some lowland areas. And the good news is, because we're low altitude, the headwind isn't going to affect us nearly as much. But we should have a pretty easy flight, if you ask me. Hey, good day, Raleigh Mall. Good to see you, Raleigh. So, by the way, guys, Raleigh Mall's here. Another great supporter of the channel from Land of Down Under. He's currently doing flights around the Charles Kingsford Smith, and he does flights around Australia. And since World Update 7 does about Australia, I don't think it'd be a better time for you guys to check out Raleigh Mall. So please smash that follow button for him. Viperstrike, I'm also now seriously considered the Arrow and Warrior since Foxtrot. Oh yeah, Foxtrot's dad has his livery. Yeah, that's also another reason. Like, I've been wanting to get the Warrior, the Piper Arrow Warrior for quite some time. I've actually been wanting to get those planes for quite some time. I'm maybe just waiting for the right moment to get them. Like, they're seriously good planes. Are seriously great planes, so I thought. I probably need to do a flight with some of them at some point. I probably need to get it. Yeah. I mean, I'm more of a bush pilot myself, Splasher, so maybe I don't really need the Viper Warrior so much. But on the other hand, there's so many people flying in the sim that I think it's something to consider. Because I don't want to show them as bonanzas. Knights F says, it's interesting how the sim doesn't model the villages here, it just shows satellite imagery. Yeah, there's lots of really small villages. Though, if I'm going to be honest, I think the major reason is either A, there's so many villages being around, but I think there's a second reason. You see, China, historically, because of Chinese privacy and protection and censorship, I bet that's probably the reason why we only just see satellite data. That's just my theory on it. Try not to be political, but it's just probably from my understanding. I have to think of something. Yeah, I'm on East USA, Raleigh. For explaining there are demos by Just Flight, it'd be really technically cool to be for MSFS. Yeah, I would like to try a demo. That would be pretty cool. You might be right. I'm actually surprised how much we're allowed to see. Yeah, I bet you that's probably what it is. Like I said, I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm just saying, China's got a well-known thing of censorship. I'm not surprised. Yeah, it does surprise me quite a bit. Oh, I don't want to talk about politics here, but I never did get the Arrow. From what I've heard, the Arrow's a really popular plane. And I've heard that's a really good GA plane. Yeah, I would definitely get the Arrow at some point. Probably waiting for a good time. Since I'm not really interested in the airliners, I think the Arrow could be my next purchase. I might buy it after the update, maybe. Oh, then, and also, yeah, the B2 Islander. That's another one I should probably consider the Islander. The Islander as well. Like I said, there's a lot of new options. The Tri-Islander. That's a very weird plane. That it has such a weird design. If you guys ever seen what a Tri-Islander looked like, let me just tell you that plus that new Legend plane's coming. Yeah, the Caradal Stagger Wing's coming. CRJ is good, but you need to eject the plane with Navigraph. Yeah, that's been a pretty big issue for the sim. It doesn't use the sim database. I definitely think the Stagger would definitely sell well. I don't think it'll be any issue. Yeah, that's a big weakness for the CRG. I don't know why they didn't do the sim database. Exactly. The sim, it made no sense. Like, why would you not want to use... I know the CRG is pretty cool, but I mean, that's a big weakness for accessibility reasons. Because not everyone is going to have Navigraph in SimBrief and all that. Not not everyone's going to have it. So at some point they need to add it back. Most of these planes are ports. That's probably why. Yeah, from X-Plane, where it's probably more needed in X-Plane, but the Microsoft Flight Sim has its own database. Just makes no sense. That's just my 20 cents about it. Yeah, they port the database over without any support for MS. Exactly. If you're at least adding those third-party planes, you need to have support for Microsoft Flight Simulator. But usually I don't like saying about, people say dumbing it down, but you gotta have some accessibility. Remember, Microsoft Flight Simulator is the most accessible flight simulator ever sold. And there's a lot of people playing it for the first time. This will be their first sim. You gotta make it somewhat accessible for people. There's a difference between complex and high complexity stuff and there's a difference between being accessible and dumbing them down. There's actually a fine line between it. There is a fine line. So here is CCHAR. It's going to be at our left. However, in this direction is CCHAR in this direction. Yeah, it should also be law requiring the use of the MS database in Flight Plan. Exactly. In the end, MSFS also allows for cheaper. Exactly. The fact Asobo is updating scenery and all that for free, that's the thing. It's so different from X-Plane. In X-Plane, all your scenery is independent. Like, all of it's done by third party. However, Microsoft, they're continuing to add more scenery, they're continuing to add more development for the data. That means less for scenery costs, and there's also licensing as well. But why? Yeah, exactly. Why not take advantage of the database? And they continue to update it too. Why would you not take advantage of cheaper costs? Costs used for not having to do the navigap. You can use it for other stuff, like developing the plane a bit more, fixing some of the issues with it. That sort of thing. Exactly. It's not me getting after Aerosoft, it's just, you know, it's a development process choice. Oh, so there's actually something in the news. I just found out. Yeah, paying for the YY's audio for the Twin Otter. Now, I don't really need the Twin Otter audio so much. I've gotten used to it. I feel old playing Flight Sim since 1984. Now, my first thing was actually Microsoft Flight Simulator X, I believe. But the thing was, I never had a computer that was powered enough to play it. And it took all the way to Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 when I got a gaming laptop powered enough to run it. No problem, K-Warren. I'm glad I can understand the issue. It took me to understand a while too. Exactly. I'm more than happy to help you understand it. Like I want to be reasonable there. Like I'm trying to be pretty reasonable. Name probably why. So let me go ahead and turn off the autopilot for a second. Hey bud, autopilot. Let's see who's still with us. So there's Count Sepp, Pongo, and Martel right behind me. They're all behind me now. Let's get them all here. So once we approach TC we should start seeing more agricultural use of the land again. So we will see more agriculture and all that once we get there. Oh yeah, one more thing about that Unit 516. It turns out Unit 516 was where they produced a lot of the chemical weapons in the Japanese. And they produced lots of chemical weapons were buried here in China. And a lot of those chemical weapons were dumped into the Nin River. There is Isihar, right here on the banks of the Nin River. There it is, right in front of us. Here she is, right over here. But definitely the scenery here, you can definitely see way more agricultural stuff down below. So we see all the different agricultural fields down over here. But from above. You can see all the different agricultural fields here. This is what they use a lot. Like, usually the main agricultural thing that China's most well known for is rice. I understand flight plans for one part, but you're saying you can't use the ICAO codes to get the starting point? I think you can use the MSF ICAO codes, but you can't use the Microsoft navigation waypoints and all that sort of stuff. Like, you can't use some of the navigation points from the MSFS database. I believe that's probably what it is. If I were a guessing man. Go ahead and turn back on the autopilot for a bit. Just wanted to do some relaxing cruising. But it's definitely very beautiful here today. Definitely very stunning out here with dense clouds. So thank you guys so far who are sticking around. Thank you guys so much for staying here with me today. So, now, I got really bad news for you guys. I got really bad news. I just wanted to share it. It just came out earlier today. You know, the world's largest plane ever built, the Antonov AN-225 Mira? Well, that plane was destroyed earlier today by Russian forces. The biggest plane on the planet was destroyed in Kiev. It was burned, apparently. It's gone. That's right. The largest plane on the planet is gone. I said no politics, but I just saying that that's what happened. Was it operational before that? Yeah, the Antonov AN-225, yeah, it was operational. Yeah, it was still an operational plane. Yeah, it is another shame. I read that they have half of one built for years now. That's correct. Just very, very rough. So now the next thing I wanted to talk about here today is actually we're gonna be flying over the city. The next city we're visiting, we're gonna actually fly over it. And this is a city known as Qing. Qing, I believe. Now, this city here is a prefecture level city in the west of the Zhejiang province. It literally, the name itself means great celebration. But the city's actually well known for another thing. It's the oil capital of all of China. And has experienced a phenomenal boom economically since the discovery of oil and the Qing oil field in 1959. The population of the city is currently at around 2,781,000 people. The region itself was a relatively insignificant place until the Qing Dynasty, when it was well known as a hunting ground. And while it grew in size with the Russian constructed Chinese Eastern Railway, it didn't really grow until 1959 when they discovered oil was actually found here. And in fact, it was a large-scale oil exploration. And it allowed China to take advantage of its energy and petrol. And its name means great celebration. And since its foundation, Peking is a model of good practice in industry and healthcare by the Chinese government. In fact, Peking was such an influential city that it promulgated one of his supreme directives during the Cultural Revolution back in the day. Now, the main thing in the economy, obviously, is petroleum and related industries, as Peking oil field is China's largest, and it's actually the world's fourth most productive oil field on the planet. Here in China, believe it or not. In 2011, its GDP was around 374 billion yuan, and petroleum accounts for 60.8% of GDP of the city. Outside of that, agricultural, forestry, animal husbandry, and fisheries are also important industries here as well. And every year, Qing exports over 10 million tons of crude oil every year. And they make over 160 varieties of paraffin wax, ethylene, tar oil, and benzene. It's also a major railway hub in the province as well. And one of the most unique things about the city is its unique spirit. Its Iron Man spirit consisting of patriotism, truth-seeking, entrepreneurial spirit, and dedication as well. So definitely a pretty interesting little city, that's for sure. So definitely a very interesting history of a very unique city in China. You live on the sim. I saw someone land on Sava in a YouTube video this morning. Gahari landed in a burb. Awesome. Yep, I don't want to talk about politics too much, but I mean, it's just sad. And here is our city further ahead. It should be quite a bit further ahead, but we should be approaching it now. Then once we get past, I'll talk about the part 2 of my history of China. which is the modern history of it, and then we'll be talking about Harbin for a bit. Looks like we found the railway below. Yep, we found the railway. There it is. There's the railway right below us. Yep, there's the railway. This is the East China Railway, one of the major paths of the Trans-Siberian Railway. But it's still further below us. But definitely some very interesting sights, and there's definitely also a lot of artificial lakes around here. If you can see out the window, there's lots of these little artificial lakes from this area. Definitely some pretty cool sightseeing stuff, that's for sure. Isn't it nice that Harbin is so easy to pronounce? Yeah. Yeah, Harbin's much easier to pronounce, so definitely. Actually, it's Tashing, I believe. Tashing. Yeah, the basic word is Tashing. I'm going to be heading and taking a quick bottle break, so I'll be heading right back. I'm back. Just a quick. There's Tashing right in front of us. Definitely pretty nice and flat here. Definitely pretty scenic stuff out here today. Just a bit flying around the scenery today. So there's volleyball, Congo, Martel, and Concept here today. Thank you guys for coming along. Now we're visiting China's oil capital. Now we're visiting the oil capital of China, which should be ahead of us. We're only 99 nautical miles remaining left to go, guys. So that's it. We're only about 100 nautical miles remaining from this trip. I appreciate all you guys who are still with me today. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. There it is. There is Tashing. Look how much all this stuff is developed, by the way. This wasn't even one of China's larger cities. This is one of the small. You can see just how much development. I mean, this is crazy how much urbanization is here. I've seen U.S. cities more span out to China's. Just China DC. All that packed in, that's crazy. According to my map, they have a diligent residential district. Wouldn't want to live there. Yeah, knowing the communists, I probably wouldn't be very surprised. Hey, Dougal, I'm doing well. My flight's been good. Currently, we're flying over the city of Tashing. Earlier, through the mountains, I talked about the early imperial history of Imperial China. Once we fly through here, I'll be talking about the modern history of China, I think pretty shortly, and then we'll talk about Harbin, and we'll make our landing there. Yeah, my flight's doing great. Despite the strong headwind, we'd be able to get things back the way they should. But yeah, you can just see how insanely developed everything is here in China. There's a lot of development here. And trust me, a lot of cities in China are extremely developed here. Yeah, China has an incredible history. And we'll get to part 2 of the history now. Now we're going to talk about the second half of the history of China part. Let's talk about the modern history for a minute, guys. So the modern history of China, so far, we go back to the history of it. Now, this occurred back in 1912, at the end of the Xinhua Revolution. And the first leader and the founding father of the Republic of China, Sun Yat-sen, was proclaimed provisional president after the Xinhua Revolution and Puyi abdicated. In 1912, Empress Manzhouli would seal the abdication decree and ended 5,000 years of monarchy. In 1912, the presidency was given then to Yuan Shikai, a former Qing general, and proclaimed himself Emperor of China. But he was forced to abdicate in 1916. However, after Yuan Shikai's death, China was politically fragmented, unfortunately. And as a result, China became a bit of the warlord. And the regional warlord era of modern China happened during that time. In the late 1920s, the Kuomintang under Chiang Kai-shek, then the principal of the Republic of China military county, was able to reunify the country under its own control with a series of deft military and political maneuverings known as the Northern Expedition, which is basically a military campaign he launched. He then moved the capital to Nanjing, also known as Nanking, and implemented a political tutelage, an immediate stage of political development by Sun Yat-sen to transform China into a modern democratic state. However, with all the political division that's happened during that timeline, it made it for him to battle against the communist-led People's Liberation Army. and that caused the Chinese Civil War to happen just a year later. And during the time of the fight, of this fight in particular, China was still facing in the middle of its issues with the warlords. So, yeah, it's still a major issue even to this day. And then we have one more thing to talk about, and that Chinese Civil War was absolutely a pretty bloody sport. It lasted, in fact, it split into two major phases. It actually has three phases. First, the one from 1927 to December 26, 1936, that lasted for 9 months. Then there was a second Chinese Civil War from 1945 to 1949, and then ongoing still to this day, since the Civil War never actually truly ended. It's gone on since December 7, 1949, and still present, even by law, for 72 years. And that's still going on into this day. And it's led to millions of deaths. However, the thing that really transcended, though, was in 1937. The Second Sino-Japanese War happened in 1937. And that forced something that's very unlikely. It forced both the KMT and the communists, led by Mao Zedong, to join forces and to deal with the Japanese. And this was absolutely brutal. I mean, some of the worst war crimes of the era, and even World War II, happened in the Sino-Japanese War. There were some absolutely brutal war crimes. I don't even want to think of. I don't even want to think about how many war crimes that happened here. Early in the war, the Japanese dominated through the war, and they invaded through China. And a lot of the major reason they got into the war was the Marco Polo Bridge incident, known as the Lugao Bridge incident. And the Japanese early on got many victories, including Beijing, Shanghai, and the Chinese capital of Nanjing. And this resulted in one of the worst war crimes in modern history. I think it's known as the Nanking Massacre. And the Japanese army burned, looted, and they actually it's mass sexual assault, and it was a beyond horrifying war crime. There's a myriad of factors, and according to estimates, their estimates there vary from 40,000 to over 300,000 people dead, with cases of rape being from 20,000 to potentially over 80,000 cases. It was one of the worst war crimes of the entire conflict. The war crime is just horrifying. It just showed the point of how brutal the Japanese were in World War II. Like, a lot of people say Nazi Germany had war crimes. I think Japan might be even, it's right up there. In fact, some areas it might be. In fact, it could have been worse if it wasn't for one of the people that actually saved all those people. And one of those is a guy named John Rave from Germany. And John Rave actually helped save a lot of people. And he actually evacuated quite a lot of people out of there. And that was a brutal war crime, to say the least. In fact, Japan still denies involvement of it. The Japanese, there's still a lot of tribunals for the war crime. However, there's been a lot of controversy about this whole thing for the Japan, especially after the war. In fact, there's even some Japanese that even deny this whole thing. So yeah, I don't want to talk about politics, but it just, yeah, the massacre in Nanjing, it is, and that's not even the least of what happened. Because during that war as well, in Harbin, there was a Japanese unit called Unit 731, and it was known officially as the Epidemic Prevention Armed Purification Department. But that's not actually what really it was. Unit 731 did all sorts of testings of it. Kidnapped innocent people, and they did testing on human beings. I'm not going to tell more about it. I mean, they did bioweapons programs, plagues, and they killed hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, I'm not interested to talk about it, but I mean, it's just. But thankfully, though, later half, thanks to the United States helping out in the war, as the Japanese wore down, eventually the Chinese pushed back Japan, and they helped the Western Allies defeat the Japanese. But once that was over, though, the Chinese Civil War restarted. And eventually the Japanese would be the communists would actually win the Chinese Civil War back in 1989. But it was still issues. However, the KMT still had control of Taiwan, and that's currently still now an international issue. Still to this day. As soon as Mao Zedong came into the power, the government could quickly consolidate its popularity by land reform, but it ended up killing lots of landlords, though, by executing them. Because, the communists weren't exactly known for private land, of course. In 1966, Mao and his allies, known as the Gang of Four, launched the Cultural Revolution, and it sparked a decade of political recrimination and social upheaval, and it led to the deaths of tens of millions. Apparently, it even created the Great Chinese Famine, and it killed 35 million deaths between 1958 and 61. And the Cultural Revolution that happened during this time led to hundreds of thousands to millions of civilian, Red Guard, and military deaths. We don't even know how many people died because of that. It's just. And eventually it ended after Mao's death in 1960. I know that Japan picked Korea this way to come from. I had no idea Japan took China. Yeah, it was rude. A lot of people easily forget the Sino-Japanese, the second one. Read The Rape of Nanking by R.S. Chang, or don't. It is brutal. Trust me, when I say it's brutal, I have no idea. It is some brutal history. Our enemy there. Yeah, the Chinese might just be. And then the modern contemporary history of China, this would be the final of the history of China. After Mao's death, the Gang of Four was quickly arrested and held responsible for the excesses of the revolution. Deng Xiaoping took power in China and instituted many economic reforms by loosening government control over people's lives, and the communes were disbanded in favor of work being contracted to households. It marked China's transition from a planned to a mixed economy. And it actually did wonders for China's economy, and it led to the massive growth of China as an economic power. In 1989, however, there was the Tiananmen Square protest, and I think we all probably know these pictures, the Tiananmen Square massacre, where the person getting run over by the tank. And it sparked combinations and sanctions against the Chinese government over time. Then in the 90s, three people, Jiang Zemin, Li Peng, and Zhu Rohingya led the nation in the 1990s, and under their administration, China's economic power pulled an estimated 150 million peasants out of poverty. It led up to a GDP growth rate of 11.2%, which is great. And in 1997-99, Hong Kong and Macau were returned back to China as well, and it joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. And currently, since 2012, Xi Jinping has ruled China since then and pursued large efforts to reform China's economy even further as well. And just this past year, on July 1st, it celebrated its 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party, with a huge gathering at Tiananmen Square. And that completes the modern Chinese history of it. So that is the modern history of China. So yeah. Yeah, my dad was awarded 2 prisoner in war Java and group of 4 stars. Yeah, Imperial Japan. Yeah. I don't have to tell you about it. I mean, just one quick history of the documentary to show what the Japanese done and read all the stuff. I don't want to talk about it anymore, though. I don't want to make this even more depressing than it already is. So, yeah. Basically, the whole point story is that modern China is just a lot of depths. Modern Chinese history can be quite depressing, so here is that too. Now, according to our nav map, we are around 54 nautical miles away from Harbin. We're gonna go ahead and I plan on landing on runway 21 right, I believe. Yeah, 21 right. But before we get there, I want to explore downtown Harbin and explore around the area for a bit. So that's kind of my plan. But yeah. Hey, CIA Cowboy, how you doing? I'm doing great. We're 54 nautical miles out of Harbin, towards Harbin. Earlier today, we talked about the history of China. One part before we entered, we talked about all of history of China. We talked about imperialistic Chinese history with the different dynasties, the Mongol invasions, the Ming, Qing, and then just a couple minutes ago, you were talking about the modern history of China and how that history was an near unprecedented level of bloodshed in modern China. And it's just like the countrymen, the Japanese thought themselves the master race. Exactly. Exactly, Knights Up. It's just, yeah. It like, if you do war crimes that even some of the Nazis are disgusted by, you probably know you're probably demented. Just saying. Exactly. I'm not interested about that though. It's difficult to discuss without being politics. Exactly. I thought the master race was the human race. Yeah, but I mean that's kind of the thing. You gotta be a little careful. I try to be careful not to discuss politics. I try to discuss things based on the historical facts about what happened. It is really hard. We all bleed red. Yeah. I'm just saying, thank God we didn't have to worry about the imperialistic Chinese, Japanese. Thank goodness thank goodness Japan's not like that anymore. Thank God. Like, that's the point about history, is that we learn all about this sort of thing. Don't want to be blinded. So now I'm going to go talk about the final slide for today. And this is the city of Harbin. So Harbin is going to be our final destination for today. Now Harbin is a very interesting city. I have a video on it on my bush trip location section of my Discord. If you guys haven't checked it out, I have a really cool Discord. I do different kinds of bush trips and stuff. I put down my flight plans so you guys can know, but I also do bush trip ideas for I go on Wednesdays. I go for locations and all that. So don't be afraid to check out my Discord. So Harbin. So Harbin was actually is the provincial capital and the largest city of Zhejiang province. In northeast China, it's the second largest city by population, behind Shenyang. And by metropolitan population, it's the larger northeast China. Its total population in the prefecture level is 10 million people. Yeah, it's 10 million. And here's the thing: it's not even the top 5 largest city in China. It's only the 8th most populous city in all of China. Now, Harbin has direct jurisdiction over 9 different metropolitan districts, 2 county-level cities, and 7 counties itself in China. The built-up area here, it makes it one of the 50 largest cities in the world. Now, Harbin was originally a Manchu word for a place for drying fishing nets, and it grew from a small settlement on the Sakua River and becoming one of the largest cities in northeastern China. Founded in 1898 with the coming of the Chinese Eastern Railway, the city first prospered as a region inhabited by an overwhelming majority of immigrants from the Russian Empire. And in the 1920s, it was considered the fashion capital of China, since new designs from Paris and Moscow reached here first before arriving in Shanghai. It was also the largest city in the Imperial Japanese puppet state of Manchuria from 1932 to 45. With its bitterly cold winters, Harbin is heralded as the Ice City, which gives it a pretty famous nickname, as well as well-known winter tourism and recreations. It is most notable for its ice sculpture festival in the winter, and that ice festival is actually the largest ice and snow festival on the planet. In 2018, for example, it attracted 18 million visitors and generated around 28.7 billion yuan of revenue, which is $4.4 billion US. And it features some of the world's biggest ice sculptures on the planet. Yes, all the stuff you see in the Ice Festival, that's all made of ice. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, let me show you about this picture. You can probably understand. Let me post this on the Discord if you guys don't mind. So they make all sorts of things from ice as well. So if you guys check it out, it's made of ice festival. And that's why it's a Chinese, despite being in China, it has a feel of a Russian city. It also serves as a important gateway for trade between Russia and China. And it also is a key political, economic, scientific, cultural, and communications hub in northeast China. And it's a very important industrial base for the country. In 2004, it was rated as the top tourist city of China. And of course, it's also one of the top 100 cities for scientific research, of course. And it's home to several major universities. In addition to Ice City, it's also nicknamed the Oriental Paris, Oriental Moscow, and the Pearl on the Swan's Neck, because there are other nicknames given to it. And you may wonder, why is it called the Ice City? Well, like I said, it's cold. In winter, it normally averages at a daily temperature of negative 19.7 degrees Celsius, or 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit in winter. And annual low temperatures below 31 degrees Fahrenheit, or 35 degrees Celsius, are not uncommon. And that's because, like I said, it's one of the colder places. And that leads to the Ice and Sculpture Festival. It is also a music city, as Harbin's home to China's oldest symphony orchestra, the Harbin Symphony Orchestra. And nearly 100 famous musicians have studied at the school since its founding. Is that as well. And of course, there's lots of unique architecture because of its Russian and European style buildings. The city is notable for all sorts of Chinese and European architectural styles as well. Given Harbin its unique feel, there's a video on my flight locations on the Discord, and that features all sorts of things about Harbin. There's a video with the Chinese city Russian feel to it. It's definitely a very cool place. Now, there's quite a few airports, obviously. But definitely a very cool and very, very interesting city. Harbin definitely is a very cool place to fly. So that's Harbin for you. Nope. So, I feel like the sim doesn't know the airport we're heading for. This could be interesting. Yeah, so far, I think things are going pretty well for us. Question is, who do I think we could probably raid today? It looks like we're probably going to raid, I think we're going to raid Tomo's world today. I think Tomo's will be a good one we should raid today. So, that's what we're going for. Next week, I think my next week's topic is going to be China's geography. We talk about the geographical thing about China, and maybe dive deeper into give you geography of China, and then also dive in a little deeper towards China's cuisine a bit. And then the third part would be some of China's most iconic landmarks. In fact, maybe after we land in Beijing, I may want to do a quick short play around the city, visit the different landmarks in Beijing, because I don't think a lot of people have ever flown in Beijing in the sense, so I think it would be pretty cool to see how people view the landmark. I think those are kind of my ideas. It looks like Ronmont have floats. Oh no, Ronmont brought the floats, JU-52. I'm feeling foodage? Yeah, food. It'll be for tomorrow. I talked a little bit about geography of China. China's geography is quite vast. And there will be foodage for tomorrow a little bit. Though I probably wouldn't mind, I might talk about geography and then talk about the finale. Not so much sports, obviously, but I'll talk about food. Food would be the final finale, would be food. I'm actually going to head off in this direction. I'm going to probably find a way to Harbin and fly around the downtown before we make the airport. I want to make it a little more interesting. At the end of the last stage, we should all order Chinese takeaway over at Tsingtao Beer. Yeah, Tsingtao. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, for guys who don't know, Tsingtao was originally Qinghao, and that used to be a port city that was owned by the Germans until the end of World War I, when it now became a Japanese city. That's just a bit of background for that's the case. Yeah, Chinese cuisine is extremely deep. A friend of mine complained about too many bones being in the food. Yep. No, we're gonna get the authentic Chinese stuff. We're not gonna get the takeout. We're getting the real food. Yeah, they still brew the beer to German recipe. That's right. And there's Harbin in front of us. Harbin should be ahead. Let's fly around the downtown. You can see here that the Songhua River is still dividing up a lot of China. So there's Harbin. We'll go ahead and disable the autopilot. There's the city. Welcome to Harbin, everyone. It's 0 buildings, though. Okay, there's Harbin. Yeah, sometimes these airports don't really have buildings, and here's the rust of downtown. There's Harbin, there's the rest of downtown. And our airport is down over here, so we can go ahead and make the landing. Once we get across this. What a great flight, everyone. It was a very enjoyable flight around China. Definitely not an area not many people get to fly very often with them. There's the rest of downtown. There's the rest of Harbin that we can make our way to our flight stop. And there's the 2 airports. Let's land on 2-1 right. It doesn't matter because the 2 airports are connected to each other. Okay guys, now if you're in the chat, don't be afraid to type in !predict and predict the landing feet per minute level. And we're going to get ready for our landing here at Wanghang Airfield. Be pretty good. I am landing with this with a headwind, so I need to be a little careful. There's gonna be a bit of wind. Oh yeah, and one more thing, guys, before I get landed. There's currently the two-tone Murphy landing challenge if anyone's involved. Actually, yeah, let's land. Everyone seems to land to the left, so we're gonna go ahead and land. Left to right, I believe. And there's currently the land challenges so far. And currently, I'm in the lead of 3 of the 5 landing challenges. So let's land at 2-1 left, and I'm the leader of 3 of the 5 landing challenges. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though, to do better than the other 2. Just raise the trim up. This is looking good. Okay. Okay. How did I do? Okay, that was cool. Woohoo! I kept across. Yeah, that was a headwind. That was a very rough headwind. 104 knots. That was great landing. Very, very. I kept it nice and slow. So go ahead and park this thing. And let me watch all you guys try to land this thing. See if you guys can land at this airport. The runway here isn't exactly that big, so let's see if you guys can put a stop to this thing pretty quickly. There's the P-28 Turbo Arrow, I believe. Here's the Turbo Arrow. I will get that plane really soon. Oh, guys, this was awesome. And here's Mongo. He's going to come in the Twin Honor. I don't think this thing is going to have any difficulties. After all, this thing can land at Saba. The Twin Honor can land at Saba. It can land anywhere. And yeah, that was a good landing in the Twin Otter there, Mongo. Nicely done. That was awesome, everyone. Thank you to everyone that has joined me on this trip. Martel, Rolling Wall, Night Zep, and Mongo 7. This is so I hope you guys can come closer so I can get a picture of all of you guys here. And this is leg 12 is now complete. Guess what, guys? You bounced it. No worries. I mean, the Twin R can definitely. Its landing gear is pretty tough. I mean, it's made for the brutal. You made a little excursion in the bush. No worry. Let's get you all guys here. Wow, guys. This was leg 12 of the trip. What a great way to end this awesome flight. And the good news is, now that this is done, guys, we're only 2 legs away from finishing this entire journey. We have the next leg next Sunday. We will be heading to Shenyang for leg 13 of the trip. Lane 13 would be in Shenyang, 269 nautical miles. It would be a So now we got this done. Thank you. Are you suspicious about the number 13? Well, good question, actually. I'm probably not that superstitious. But it should be very interesting. And then for 14, we just head from Shenyang to Beijing. That would be it. That's our journey. And then on Wednesday, that's going to be an interesting one. I'm thinking for Wednesday we might be heading to the Caribbean. I've been doing some awesome flights in the Caribbean, so I may take the Twin Otter back into the Caribbean, and we do some really awesome landings in the Caribbean. This should be very fun. So guys, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and raid Tomo's World today. We're going to raid Tomo's today. So make sure you guys stick for the raid. Seriously, guys, thank you so much for coming into the channel for another fantastic flight. I really appreciate everyone being here. And thank you guys so much. Viperstrike 95, out.